afternoon, everyone. Starting the Welfare Safety Advisory Board's November 16th, 2022 public meeting. My name is Tim Tutt, and the board advisor, and I'm going to talk briefly about how to participate in this meeting. And we welcome public comment during the general public comment period on the agenda, and if desired after any agenda item. The public may participate in comment in person or remotely by support by phone. Please note that public comment may be limited to 3 minutes per participant. There is a sign-up sheet for participants in person in the room. We intend to provide public comment here. Please indicate which agenda item or which you wish to comment, and participants will call on the turn. Participants by Zoom will be placed on mute in listen walk only mode for the public comment portion of the meeting. And next slide, please. Please be aware that participation by Zoom while in the room may cause sound issues, so please mute your microphones and speakers and computers as appropriate. In order for us to record and get sound to remote participants, so everyone will be using a mic. We'll be passing that around. If you don't have a mic in front of you, but you say something, please speak up loudly so that it comes clear on the recording. Participants by phone will also be placed on mute in this room until the public comment portion of the meeting. And once the public comment portion of the meeting begins, participants may dial #2 when they wish to speak to place in a queue by an operator. Next slide, please. So relevant materials for today's meeting can be found on our website, and the address you can see on the screen. And public comments can be received in writing, will be received in writing, that are received in writing, can also be found on the website at the address you see on the screen. The next slide, please. This is the list of the WSAB members. I'm now going to turn the meeting over to Chair Block for her introduction.
Thank you very much. Yeah. My name is Jessica Block. I'm chair of the board, and we'll now call this meeting to order. Today is November 16th, 2022. The final quarterly board meeting advisory board, and we're here at the Caltrans office in downtown Los Angeles. I want to thank all of my fellow board members for being here today. It's really exciting for us to finally have a Southern California meeting. I'd also like to thank our new Office of Energy Infrastructure IT professional, Rainy Vasquez, who probably and others, and setting up remote participation and assisting to ensure that this hybrid meeting runs smoothly. And I'd like to thank Department of Transportation for opening up this room and hosting our meeting. Thank you at the bottom of our hearts from the board, Tim Tutt, and our staff support, Marianne Aguayo. I want to take a moment here to acknowledge his work for us over the last year. He's actually leaving us at the end of November. He's abandoning us at the end of November. And thankfully we have a new advisor, Jonathan Frost, who will be attempting to fill his shoes and supporting us next year. And he should be actually on listening this afternoon. Tim, I'll give it back to you to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Chair Block. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Now we have a brief safety moment. We just want to remind everybody to take extra precautions in autumn as the rain starts on the freeway to those get slippery, to be careful in driving, protect your batteries, make sure you don't get caught, and headlights. And particularly your windshield wipers that will test in the car. So windshield wipers haven't been replaced in quite some time, driving through the rain and that's the issue. Watch for sun glare, get new tires if you don't have sufficient tread. We just put on new tires on a couple of our cars. And it's nice to have those in the rain. And check your brakes. I think the one other thing I will say is driving electric vehicles is they're heavier and they start with fuel long time. They have fewer hot parts. Yes.
Do we have the exit path in case of emergency?
The exit path in case of emergency from this room is to go out the hallway and out to where you came in, go straight down the hallway. There's an emergency exit at the end of that hallway. And across the street from the front of the building, there's a little park next to a senior fish restaurant that we can collect in to make sure that everybody has made that. Next slide, please. I'm going to hand it back to Jessica up there block for the rest of this for the next slide. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tim. So this is our agenda for the afternoon. We'll start with public comments to the Welfare Safety Advisory Board, and then we will discuss and vote on our meeting minutes from our August 18th and then subsequent August 30th meeting. We will then get an update from Nicole Dunlap from the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety. We will have a CAL FIRE presentation on the 2022 wildfire season from Chief Jeff Fuentes. And then we will go into a publicly owned utility panel discussion, which includes CNUA, LADWP, IID, Anaheim. And is that everybody? And then after that, we'll talk about the board will discuss our adoption of our guidance advisory opinion for the 2023 wildfire mitigation plans, the California's electric publicly owned utility and rural cooperative. And I think there will be public comment at the end and then a potential closed session. Are we going to do a closed session? No. Right. Okay. And then we will adjourn. I will continue. So, the primary goal of this meeting is to focus on a publicly owned utility obligation to submit annual WMPs to the California Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, and this is our third round of reviewing those documents. I'd like to say that we've seen significant improvement as the POUs collaborated with us and considered our previous advice that are looking forward to the comprehensive revision WMPs that will follow in 2023. Do any of my board members have any opening statements? Chair, Vice Chair comment.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Block. I just wanted to say, first of all, I'm really excited to see my colleagues on the board in person again after a long time on Zoom. I'm really very, very thrilled that we're in Southern California because it seems like so much of our work is focused north and so much of the energy produced in the state is in the south. And I also want to acknowledge the contribution of the publicly owned utilities to the California grid because I think we learned today that the publicly, I knew that it was reiterated when we went on a field visit this morning that the publicly owned utilities generate about 25% of power in the state and community, and that is very significant and not to be ignored. Having said that, I want to also thank Mr. Malini, your organization, CNUA, and the Golden State Power Cooperative for working with the board to come up with a pathway to an efficient, meaningful review of the over 50 WMPs that we receive from everyone. And I think this is our third round of review. And it's just been the best yet. And we also want to underscore that we are not a regulatory body. And thank you for respecting that we are an advisory body and ready, willing, and able to not force our advice on you, but work cooperatively with the publicly owned utilities to improve and or to offer our expertise and provide with guidance to make the best possible wildfire mitigation and prevention efforts in your service territories. And then I have known Mr. Chutt, how many years now? At least 25. So I want to thank him for his service and coming and working with us and really keeping us going over the last year. And we have Jonathan Frost joining us from his remote location. So hello, Jonathan, and welcome to this crazy ride that's the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board. So, and last but not least, Mary Ann, you've just done such a wonderful job just navigating us through whatever we come up against, including getting us delicious lunch today. So thank you, Mary Ann. All right. Any other opening comments from the board? Okay.
Let's move on to the public comment opportunity at the beginning. Please note that public comment will also be available after each agenda item. Rain, you're moving slide?
Yes.
You're moving slide? Yes. So like this, testing. That's better? Okay. Okay, let's start first. Rain, are there any public comments on the phone line?
Not currently.
No comments on the phone line. How about public comments on Zoom?
No hands are raised.
No hands are raised. Let's check the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board email box. Okay. There are no comments there. I'm just going to wait just a little bit to make sure that anybody who's on the line there has an opportunity to raise their hand on Zoom or call in. Public comments are very important to us, and we want to make sure that people have the chance to speak. Oh, is there anybody in person who would like to make a public comment? All right.
So the feedback I'm getting is that it sounds like you're in the tunnel. But a little better. So, that was a bad idea.
It is. I don't know what to do. So it sounds like that maybe the speaker. Where's the mic? Where are people getting audio from? From that laptop? That's why.
Why are you talking? Because otherwise they won't be able to hear it all the way here.
Well, I can just stand like that.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I think most. You know what? Yeah, why don't you give that guy? We're gonna
We're gonna do a little audio tech experiment. Stand by.
Yeah, we understand
So,
that.
but if we
Testing,
turn the mic
testing.
on our laptops,
Yeah.
we should be able to speak clearly. So if you
Okay,
would
this is
mute your
better.
laptop, Tim, because you're on right now. And Marianne, you're on, whoever that is. And then if,
So, are you where are you looking for feedback, Marianne? Is it in the chat?
I'm getting a text.
Okay.
so
Can I get confirmation that you can hear me well now?
Oh, much better,
Okay, that's what we're gonna do.
much better.
We're gonna alternate muting and unmuting. Thank you, Jeff. We're gonna alternate muting and unmuting our laptops, so please bear with us. Thank you very much. This is the first time we've been in this room.
So just
Okay,
one thing that Marianne will have to put her laptop by the office. She's logged in. I don't know if they have panelists. It says you're on. It's that laptop.
Oh, that's
Your iPad's on.
we can move my laptop.
It's muted. And I'm muted too.
Are we okay? What's wrong? Okay, we're going to march on.
And Ralph has his hand raised. Ralph, you have your hand raised. Ralph, you have your hand raised.
Okay,
and Tim,
I'll
you're
take it
still
down.
not muted, Tim.
So Rain said we have a raised hand.
That was me, but I was checking something else.
I'm muted here.
we're not getting, yeah, thanks, John. Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks everybody for the patience. On to the next agenda item is our board discussion and adoption of the minutes from the August 18th meeting, which also created a follow-on meeting for August 30th. I hope everyone has had the opportunity to read the minutes. Are there any edits or additions to the meeting minutes from August? No. Hearing none. Can I get a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from August?
How about a motion to adopt the minutes for August?
Ralph says motion.
I'm sorry, I was unable to get off the chair that I would like to make a comment.
Oh, go for it, John.
The
Oh, hold on.
com-
Do you want to unmute?
I'm unmuted. The comment I wanted to make was that one of the recommendations that the board made that was accepted by the Wildfire Safety Division was to develop a plan to evaluate exempt from GO 95 or pre-GO 95 equipment. And, that originally came from a commenter from the public comment from one of our meetings. And so I just wanted to call out that, how important it is, public participation in these meetings, and that they actually contributed to actual solid, significant actions. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Board Member Mader. I agree. We should socialize our quarterly meetings a little more. We had higher participation in the earlier years, and should make sure people know that we're meeting and reviewing these documents. Thank you. Any other comments? I think. Nope. Okay. So Ralph motioned to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vice Chair Fellman seconds. I call for a roll call to adopt the meeting minutes. Tim, will you do the roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Block. Vice Chair Fellman.
Aye.
Vice Chair Fellman says aye. Board Member Porter.
Aye.
Board Member Porter says aye. Chair Block.
Aye.
Chair Block says aye. Board Member Mader.
Aye.
Board Member Mader says aye. And Board Member Armstrong.
Aye.
Board Member Armstrong says aye. Aye. There's 5 ayes, no nos. Motion carries.
Oh. I'd like to make note that our sixth board member, Dr. Alexander Seifert is on remotely. Should we get a vote from her?
Yes.
Dr. Seifert, are you able to unmute and vote aye or nay for the meeting minutes last August?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hold on. Sorry. Is this on?
Hello?
Through theirs?
So you should be muted while she's speaking.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? I can't hear anything.
Go ahead, Seifert.
I apologize. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Aye.
And then Rand, just let me know when it's safe to unmute.
Go ahead. You're good.
All right, so we're just communicating in tandem to make sure that only one thing is unmuted at a time. Thanks, everybody remotely, for your patience. Okay. So now we have a 6 yay, no nay. Okay. Okay. So next, we're very pleased to be joined by Nicole Dunlap from the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety. Nicole will be giving an update on the progress in the Energy Safety Department. Thank you, Nicole, for being here.
Everybody go ahead and mute.
Thank you, Jessica. Testing that you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Dunlap. I'm a supervisor in the Electric Safety Policy Division of the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety, or Energy Safety. Today, I'm here to provide the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board with an update on energy safety's work since the board's last meeting, and also to take any feedback. My update will cover 5 areas. First, I'll talk about the Wildfire Mitigation Plan, or the WMP guidelines. Second, I'll talk about the status of our 2022 WMP evaluations. Then the planning for some WMP related scoping meetings. Fourth, I'll give some updates on other policy work streams. And finally, I'll give a brief update on other areas of energy safety, such as the work of our compliance and our data teams. So first, I want to thank the board for your recommendations on the WMP requirements on our that were integrated into our guidelines. They were considered in the drafting of those 2023 to 2025 WMP guideline documents. We published a suite of draft WMP guideline documents in September, on which we received stakeholder comments in October, and we're currently considering those comments carefully. We hope to have the final 2023 to 2025 WMP guidelines ready for adoption in early December. We published the 2023 WMP schedule in draft form in October. This requires the large utilities to pre-submit their WMPs in February, and the SMJUs and ITOs, called the small electrical corporations, to pre-submit their WMPs in March. At a high level, the schedule for next year aims to have final decisions with or without a revision notice complete by the end of November. The schedule also allows energy safety to get what we call a year ahead, meaning that energy safety will be reviewing plans for the future year rather than the current year. So to accomplish this in 2023, Energy Safety will evaluate a utility's proposed 2023 and 2024 plans so that in 2024, we can evaluate utilities' work plan for 2025 and so on. We're finalizing the schedule following our review of those public comments, and we'll publish the final schedule in December. Next, turning to the status of the 2022 WMP update evaluations of this year, we published final decisions on the independent transmission operators, Horizon West and Transbay Cable, also on San Diego Gas and Electric Company, Southern California Edison, all over this summer period. Earlier this month, more recently, we published final decisions for Liberty Utilities and also PG&E's 2022 WMP updates. In terms of outstanding final decisions for this year, we recently published draft decisions for Bear Valley and Pacificor. Comments on those draft decisions are due later this month, and we hope to publish the final decisions in December. Okay, moving on to planning for our upcoming scoping meetings. As a result of the 2022 evaluations, WMP evaluations, Energy Safety will be hosting a set of 3 public scoping meetings, one each on climate change, community vulnerability, and the third on vegetation management best practices related to wildfire safety. Those meeting dates and details are still being determined, but we are interested in hearing from the board in terms of suggestions on subject matter experts who we can invite to be speakers, any individuals or organizations who you think should be part of that discussion. We've already initiated some discussions with some individual board members on this topic, but if you have any feedback at all, including further thoughts, ideas, or questions, you can get in touch directly with me. Turning now to updates on a few other policy work streams for executive compensation, Energy Safety issued draft 2023 executive compensation guidelines in September. Stakeholder comments were submitted in October, and we're evaluating those comments, and we plan to adopt final executive compensation guidelines at an adoption meeting scheduled on November 28th. Regarding safety culture assessments, Energy Safety has been working with a consultant to complete the 2022 safety culture assessments. The reports are currently being drafted based on utilities management self-assessments, workforce surveys, and workforce focus groups, the last of which of those focus group is scheduled was yesterday on the 15th. And we expect to publish the safety culture assessment reports in late December. To create an opportunity for public comment, Energy Safety held a public workshop in August to present the results of the management self-assessments, which will be part of those final safety culture assessment reports. I'd also like to provide an update on our work related to Public Utility Code 326A7. This requires Energy Safety to review safety requirements for electrical transmission and distribution infrastructure and provide recommendations to the Commission to address the dynamic risk of climate change and to mitigate wildfire risk. The Public Utility Code also provides for coordination with the California Wildfire Safety Advisory Board on this topic. Energy Safety has retained a contractor to assist with the effort and will be working to receive board input on this topic over the next few months. If board members have any general comments or input that you would like to provide today regarding recommendations for changes to general orders, new general orders, or other additional requirements for electrical transmission and distribution infrastructure, Energy Safety would be happy to receive it. Otherwise, we'll follow up with more specific questions. Finally, other work areas that we have going on, as you know, we have both the compliance and policy divisions. I've been reporting on our work under the policy division. We also have a data analytics division. The data analytics division recently published draft data guidelines that set out quarterly data requirements for utilities GIS and WMP data. A workshop to discuss the draft guidelines is scheduled for tomorrow, November 17th. Energy Safety intends on issuing final data guidelines before the end of the year. And our compliance assurance division has had a busy summer working on their first set of annual reports on compliance, or ARCs. These reports assess utilities' compliance with their own 2020 WMP. So far, the compliance division has published draft ARCs for Southern California Edison, the 2 independent transmission operators, Horizon West and Transbay Cable, and the remainder are set to be published very soon. So in conclusion, thank you for the time today to talk a little bit about what energy safety has been up to over the past few months. And we really look forward to strengthening our partnership with the board and collaborating on these important topics moving forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nicole. I need to telepathically communicate with Rain in the room to make sure the audio is right. Really appreciate your presentation. Can you repeat the timeline for GEO order recommendations?
Timeline.
Like what would you, what timeframe would you welcome comments from board members?
I mean, I think it's not a short time frame. It's over the next few weeks or few months. I believe we're going to be collecting input on that. So yeah, time frame would be within the next, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks. But I know that other folks from the policy division will be following up with board members with some specific questions they want some more specific input on. So you might be hearing from others from our team.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. Are there any other comments from board members on Nicole's presentation or questions? Okay, moving on. We're going to hear about the 2022 wildfire season from CAL FIRE Chief Jeff Fuentes, or is Mark Turner? I see Jeff.
Hey, can you hear me? Just want to do a
And hold
mic
on
check
just
real
one
quick.
second, Jeff, before you start.
Okay. Can you hear me? Thumbs up, I guess. All right, very good. So good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Block, and the rest of the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, and Tim Tutt. Appreciate the opportunity to be part of today's board meeting. My name is Jeff Fuentes. I'm the division chief that oversees our utility fire wildfire mitigation program. I'll just do a quick bit on our program and kind of what it's all about. Obviously, we focus on the reduction of utility-related wildfires. We try to do that, several different ways. One of which is through the Powerline Fire Prevention Field Guide, which some of you may be familiar with. That's a document that our program maintains in collaboration and coordination with utilities, other state agencies and stakeholders, and really try to capture all things, power line safety related, from budget management to, including exempt and non-exempt hardware list and pictures. So that's also something that we review in our program. We also assist the Office of Energy Infrastructure Safety in the review of the annual wildfire mitigation plans submitted by the investor-owned utility. So we get to work with Nicole and her team, all the great folks on her team. And then also act as a liaison between CAL FIRE and the utilities and state agencies, especially in kind of that public safety power shutoff space. And do training with our folks on Public Resources Code 42, 92, and 93, which deals with conductor clearances, pole brushing clearances, when certain types of equipment that can create arcs and sparks are used. But today I also have with me CAL FIRE Staff Chief of Operations, Andy Turner, who will be covering kind of an update on the 22 fire season. So with that, I'll kind of pass the mic to him, and I think you guys should have the slide deck. We can, I guess, move to the slides, and he'll take over for a little bit.
There we go. Jeff, can you hear me okay? Great. Hopefully the rest of the board can hear. My name is Andy Turner, again, Staff Chief, Fire Protection Operations up in Sacramento with CAL FIRE. I'm also one of the incident commanders on one of our 6 incident management teams. Just a brief overview of our numbers. These numbers are a little misleading, but it's the total number of assets we're allocated. As far as engines go, during the peak of our fire year, our highest fire danger time, of those 398 fire engines, we have 356 fully staffed. And those are staffed 24/7 at our CAL FIRE stations. That is the staffing level we are at right now. We are going to be moving to a lower transition staffing level on Monday, November 21st, following these last few strings of storms that came through. So the fire danger's down just enough that we can send some of our seasonal staff home. And so we'll be down to 243 engines come Monday. As far as the crews go, our hand crew program is in a constant state of evolution. That number shows 222. Of that funded, 152 of those crews are CDCR. And so that would be inmate crews. We have 30 California Conservation Corps crews. We now have 26 paid firefighter crews, CAL FIRE firefighter crews, and 14 military California National Guard crews. And so that number 222 of that 152 of those are CDCR crews. Because of inmate depopulation, we currently only have 56 of those 152 CDCR crews staffed. And so our true number right now is 126 crews of 222 that we are allocated. And so we're going through the change, trying to transition from inmate crews to paid staff crews. And so each year we add a few paid crews, and eventually, hopefully, we can catch back up to that true 222 number there. In addition, you see our bulldozers, our air tankers, our helicopters. There's a note that we are approved for 4 additional helicopters. And in the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about our rotor wing program. We have our 18 air attacks, and that includes a few that are relief or training air platforms. And what an air attack is it's a single, a dual prop small airplane. It would have the pilot and one of our battalion chiefs or fire captains that is the air traffic controller and the spotter for all of our air assets, the fixed wing air tankers and the helicopters. And then, as I mentioned, we have our 6 incident management teams. Those incident management teams are the highest complexity that there is. They're type 1. They're all hazard, all risk. And so any major disaster, they are fit to respond to. We've had responses to mitigate the COVID issue. We've done mudslides, we've done floods, and of course, major fires. And so with that, we can transition to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, our helicopter program, we are in the process of transitioning our, I would say, earlier than Vietnam era Hueys out of the fleet and moving to a new fleet of Firehawks, the Sikorsky S-70I. And so over the last several years, we've secured funding through budget change proposals, and we are currently transitioning to this new helicopter. And what it gives us, the old helicopters, if they had a tank or a bucket, they were around 500 gallons. And so our gallonage, our water delivery capacity is doubled or more than doubled. These new helicopters will have 2 engines, which is always better than 1 when it comes to rotor wing. They will hold a 9-person crew, and they have integrated hoist for rescue. And what would happen with our old helicopters is if we needed to do a rescue, we would have to land, reconfigure the aircraft, and then take back off. And so there was a large delay there in getting whoever needed to be rescued. In addition to that, these helicopters are capable of night flight. And so we are transitioning somewhat slower than we're transitioning the fleet. We are transitioning to night flying operations with our rotor wing helicopters. It really helps a lot with structure defense. And so, so far we only have the bases at Hemet Ryan and I believe Vina that are night flying capable. But this last season was our first night flying operations with our own helicopters. And so it's a major milestone within the department. And ready for the next slide, please. So this slide just shows some of our numbers from this year. And I'll say that it was a moderate fire season in comparison to the last 5 or 10, but we still had several major fires. You can see those listed on the left there. We had, for our incident management teams, we had 4 activations, and those 4 fires are in that list there: the Electra, the Oak, and then the Mill and the Mountain Fire. We combined, one incident management team took both of those since they happened at the same time, and they were in somewhat close proximity up in Siskiyou. And then we had our last team activation was to the Fairview down in Riverside. You can see on the right side of the slide there is our numbers. We had 0 firefighter fatalities in our wildland fires, but we did have 9 civilian fatalities. You can see structures damaged versus destroyed this year. The number of ignitions or unwanted wildfires there is 7,211. And then our total acres for this season at the 362,000 number there. And so in the table below that, you can see a comparison in between the 2021 season versus the 2022 season. You can see just around 900 less ignitions to deal with, but the real significant number there is the acreage. We were 1 million, what is that? Just around 1.1 million less acres this summer. Again, I'm not going to say it was a slow season. It was certainly a moderate season. We've just seen such insane seasons in the last 5. And you can see that 5-year average there, where our ignitions are somewhat consistent at, in that 7,000, 7,500 range. But the acres over the 5-year average has just been an insane amount, 2,106,000. And so something to say about the differences in this season's numbers, there are a few factors. And one of them is that we did have some help from Mother Nature. We had a string of monsoonal moisture come through in intervals throughout the season. It didn't produce a lot of precipitation, but it did raise the humidities, and it did help with fuel moistures. And so the intervals of that moisture coming through the state was just about like once per month. And so anytime the fuels would get ready to really want to burn, that moisture would come in and it would knock that back. And so we did have that help, but we also have augmented our staffing. Our traditional staffing levels usually go up in June and then drop back down in October, November. Over the last several years, and this last season, we beef up our staffing in March, and we stay staffed through December. And so with that augmentation of staffing, with the addition of a lot of exclusive use and extra air assets, extra helicopters and extra fixed wing air tankers, that's also helped both, not so much with the ignitions, but certainly with the acres. And so hopefully we'll continue to get support from the legislature and the public in augmenting our staffing, bringing on our folks early, and getting those extra air assets. And so that's the end of my report and with this slide, and I'll pass it back to Jeff. But thank you for your time today.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So my question is, you said that we've stayed constant at about 7,500 wildfires. This is the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, primarily focusing on utility-initiated wildfires. Are we able to bifurcate the number between utility-initiated wildfires and other causes to see if there's an overall trend in change in utility-initiated wildfires?
That's a great question. And I know that is a number we can produce. And Jeff would actually be the perfect the perfect contact to get that back to you. I don't have it readily available, but that's something that Jeff can get for you.
Yeah, and with that, good question. I think that's all stuff what we're looking at, right? Is trying to look at those trends. Part of that is there's a quality control and QA/QC that has to happen after each incident, and all the reports need to get completed. But kind of just watching the trends, there does seem to be a reduction in the number of utility-related ignitions. I don't have the exact percentage of reductions, and we're not through the end of the year yet. Really, we have to wait for the end of the year, all the reports to get completed. And like I said, QA/QC, that stuff. But, there has been, it seems to be a reduction in the ignitions, which is good. Hopefully we can continue that trend.
That's good to hear, Jeff. I mean, I know that I appreciate that there's got to go through a QA/QC process, and we need to go through the end of the year. But we were speaking earlier in this meeting that this is our third year of reviewing wildfire mitigation plans. So it is hoped that this kind of concentration from the various utilities in the state on reducing utility fires is that we can see a resulting result, a trend towards achieving that goal.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions before I move to the next slide? All right, very good. So what we're looking at on the screen is it's a predictive services product that's through the Geographic Area Coordination Center that puts it out at the beginning of each month. And they do one of these in the northern region. They do one of them in the southern region for California, and it's called the 4-month seasonal outlook. And what they're doing is not just looking at forecasted weather, but they're also using that forecasted weather, combining it with the state of the fuel. So looking at things like fuel moistures, live and dead, also assessing resource drawdowns and things of that nature to kind of look to see what kind of significant fire potential there could be in those 4 months as an outlook. So you'll see on here, this was released at the beginning of the month. This is for November through February. Obviously, we've seen some of that weather come in and how it's played out. So, during the summer, you'll see a lot more, above normal significant fire potential. But it's good, we have seen a lot of above normal even this time of year in previous years. So I'll kind of get into that a little bit on here. So for the northern region, there were, no large fires reported during the month of October, which allowed kind of resources to take advantage of those kind of milder conditions by doing prescribed burning operations. We've had this kind of La Nina weather pattern going on for, I think, the third year in a row now. And that the long-term drought intensities, slightly changed from September to October, but the rating should improve some during this month. But drought is still expected to kind of remain across most areas, but even the potential of an increase in long-term drought intensities during the winter months across portions of the region due to extended drier and warmer periods as we go through winter. So as far as the fuels, the flammable, the live and dead fuel alignments, when they're both at their kind of critical levels, aren't expected to occur for any appreciable amount of time right now during the next 4 months, thanks to kind of those timely moisture intrusions that we've had. And we're starting to see that widespread green up kind of across especially the lower elevations, and starting to develop that snowpack in some of the higher elevations. So still have some gusty, dry northerly offshore winds. events that are, that occur, but not really, forecasting to align with critically dry fuels, luckily at this time of the year. So therefore, for, north ops, the significant fire potential outlook is normal for the next 4 months. So we can go to the next slide and I'll touch on just the Southern California outlook. So for the Southern Region Predictive Services, they're anticipating kind of this high pressure to kind of remain off the California coast and be kind of a dominant feature, November through February. And having that area high pressure off the coast, will likely bring above normal temperatures, below normal precipitation to those regions. But though they are anticipating brief periods of showers, like we did get some in those last storms that came through, and some below normal temperatures. But I think it was just yesterday that there were some red flag warnings down there for some, Santa Ana winds. So, as those, there'll be Pacific troughs that kind of move downward and, can still get precipitation every and now and then. And so they're saying that it's basically likely enough that that precipitation could keep any kind of significant fire potential and kind of keep it at that normal level through the winter. But we'll kind of have to wait to see there. Those winds can really dry things out as well. You can kind of see there on the bottom, the kind of what's the normal amount of average amount of Santa Ana wind events down there. It's, they get them every year. It's really a matter of the fuels and what the moistures in those, whether or not, those all align. So we can go to the next slide. And just kind of quickly, CAL FIRE is engaging in, fuel reduction work and fire prevention activities, year round, and is really a vital part of our mission. The idea is the fuel reduction work is to prevent, uncontrolled wildfire spread and, reduce fire hazards by creating a break in, the fuel continuity. So that just helps modify the wildland fire behavior and can keep it on the ground versus up in the canopies of trees and things, and kind of enable firefighters to protect communities. This time of year, we're really able to take advantage of those milder weather conditions to kind of conduct prescribed burns or complete hazard reduction pile burning. So a couple pictures there of some different types of fuel treatments. Those fuel reduction projects are kind of planned, developed, and implemented in alignment with, the California's Wildfire Forest Resilience Action Plan, the Strategic Fire Plan, and really kind of identified at that CAL FIRE local level, and it's put in their fire plans. So, those are done in kind of cooperation with, local stakeholders. And so you can kind of see there on the slide, the stats. Last year's goal, this is for fiscal year, was 100,000. We were able to get to 101,548. And then this year, which began just recently at the beginning of the fiscal year. So we're at 224 projects and almost 21,000 acres treated, and that's of the 10th. So I believe that is all I had for the presentation. That should be the end of the report. But again, appreciate the opportunity to be part of the board meeting, and happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Thank you so much, Chief Fuentes and Andy Turner. Thank you so much. I have a couple of really quick questions. One is how do you strategize the location of your prescribed fires, and are you planning to scale those in the coming years to more acres per year? I guess I'll stop there first.
I'll take that, Jeff. It's Andy Turner speaking again. So regarding the locations, each individual administrative unit in our department split into 2 regions. And then within those regions, there are administrative units. There's 21 of those. And so each one has a coordinator for their fuel reduction and prescribed fire. And so within each of those units, they identify places that are either a advantage to the community and the improvements like populated areas, or they identify places where they can take big swaths of land where the topography lines up so that they can prevent spread. It just depends on the individual situation. I know in the last unit I was working in Tulare County, we changed our focus to the major arteries that flowed into the foothills. And so in Tulare County, you have Highway 190 and Highway 198, and those both go up into populated areas, into communities up in the wildland. And so we focused on like 100 feet or 150 feet on either side of those arteries, and then any arteries that split off of those. And that was for a couple reasons. One was you could both limit the fire spread across from one side, from the north to the south or the south to the north. And you also were creating a major buffer for these folks to be able to evacuate. And so you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. And so that's how folks are looking at it. And I know there's a shift to try and synergize that strategic planning for our vegetation management stuff. But I know we don't want to focus on big brush fields out in the middle of nowhere that doesn't really buy anybody anything. And so as far as the numbers go, we have been tasked to increase our numbers both on the fuels treatment, like mechanical treatment side, and our black acres, our burned acres side. And so we're challenged to do like 50,000 acres burned with prescribed fire in the future, like in the 2023 fiscal year, 2024 year. So our numbers are increasing, and I can get you those specifics, or I can have Jeff get you the specific numbers, but they have increased significantly, and they've increased significantly both on the state and the federal side. The federal agencies have matched the challenge. I don't want to be quoted as saying exactly what it is, but I'm pretty sure it's 250,000 acres total and 50,000 burned acres. It's something like that. And like I said, Jeff can get you the exact numbers.
Thanks so much. I appreciate that. I know it's a big challenge to scale up prescribed burns, so I was just curious how that was going. My last question is, so I was lucky to attend a training from Chief Fuentes at ION talking about reviewing exempt and not exempt equipment and understanding the differences between them. So I know CAL FIRE is heavily involved in equipment and clearance regulation in the SRA. But to what extent do you work with the utilities when you're doing prescribed fire and other mitigation efforts?
Jeff, I'm not sure if you want to take that one.
Sure. Yeah. So, obviously there's anytime that we're going to do a prescribed fire, there's notifications that get made, media releases. So they're getting notified of those. And we've worked recently to make sure that they do get those notifications. And then again, kind of going back to that kind of the local unit fire plans, a lot of the fuel reduction efforts and things are in those local plans. And part of those plans is to work with, other agencies. It could be Caltrans projects, it could be Firewise communities, or even where they're doing utility corridors, and to kind of look at that stuff. And another thing that we're looking at is kind of a collaboration on that way we're not we're not putting in a fuel break and then they're doing a fuel break and kind of like all these bits and pieces and not connecting the fuel reduction work together. So there is, we are talking about like looking at ways to make that kind of connect better. Like, there are lots of grants that CAL FIRE approves for fuel reduction projects. And so, having them know where those are, when they're doing fuel reduction work too, to see how those will kind of line up versus, a swath here and a swath there. It would be nice to have a one continuous larger fuel reduction break. So there is some coordination that we are trying to work with on those. But as far as them doing prescribed burns, I'm not sure that any of the utilities themselves are doing any kind of prescribed burning that I'm aware of. I'm not sure if that is speaking to that question or not.
Thanks. That's a wonderful, really good to hear. I've been wondering about that for a long time. Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation and for those answers. And I want to say I really appreciated Chief Fuentes' training in ION, and I highly recommend the rest of my board members who are less familiar with the equipment to attend. It was really great. Thank you. Can I ask my fellow board members if they have any questions or comments on the presentation? No.
We appreciate it.
And John, Board Member Mader also says, we very much appreciate your attendance and we hope you can come to our next one. Thank you very much. Should we move on? Okay. Okay. And everyone can still hear me. Okay. Okay, thanks again. We're now going to transition to our panel from the publicly owned utility representatives discussing some of their wildfire mitigation activities, moderated by CMUA Executive Director Barry Moline. Barry, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Block. As I said, I am Barry Moline, Executive Director of the California Municipal Utilities Association. And, if we go to slide 5, there of that presentation, wherever it might be, that's probably the best way to start it. Well, it's not necessary to have my slides. My slides are just words. I mean, words that I'll be saying. It's not that important. You can leave that there for LADWP. First, what I want to do is thank the board and staff for your work and your commitment to wildfire safety. The way that we see this going is that's it. Yeah, perfect. I have a short presentation, and then we have a panel of public owned utilities. We can pause at any time for questions, whatever you'd like. There's, we don't need to zip through everything. It's, if you have questions, just let's address them as you'd like. So again, thank you for your commitment to wildfire safety. As we said in our comments, the publicly owned utilities and the electric cooperatives, and I'll refer to them as the POUs and co-ops, we greatly value the input provided by the board, and we believe in board's efforts are actually improving wildfire safety across the entire state. Now, the co-ops and Jessica Nelson from Golden State Power Cooperative is not here. We work very closely together, and we work closely on our comments and in some of the activities that I'm going to talk about, our sub-working groups. I don't speak for the electric cooperatives, but again, we are closely aligned in the way we work together, and our organizations are consumer owned. So it makes sense that we work together. So as you know, POUs and co-ops are regulated by their locally elected and appointed governing boards. They have a strong commitment to safety. We believe our excellent safety record demonstrates this commitment. And now that we're 3 years into this process. We also believe that the board has a better understanding of POUs and co-ops and that the process is improving. One example is by you all releasing the draft guidance advisory opinion earlier in the year, it's easier for the POUs and co-ops to consider the recommendations, your recommendations, as part of their next wildfire mitigation plans. And we appreciate that. So that is, your ideas are being incorporated into those plans. We think there are still areas for improvement, and in particular, we want to work towards reducing burdens associated with both the preparation and the review of the WMPs. We want to ensure that the efforts are supporting wildfire mitigation rather than taking time and resources away from staff, particularly from smaller agencies that are essential for implementing the wildfire actions and reduction. So the associations, CMUA and Golden State Power Cooperative, we stand ready to help with the collaboration to further reduce these burdens and improve the effectiveness of the WMPs. More specifically, first is a general update on our wildfire mitigation plan efforts. So SB 901 directed the POUs and co-ops to prepare the comprehensive revision of their mitigation plans at least once every 3 years. And for many POUs and co-ops, the 2023 WMPs will be that first 3-year comprehensive revision. The exact meaning of comprehensive revision is left to those agencies, ultimately to their governing boards. And the nature of the comprehensiveness will differ based on the level of wildfire risk that each utility faces and how their prior plans were created and revised. One major goal that we have is to make sure that the WMPs reflect the full scope of wildfire mitigation activities and programs that each utility employs. And then that the information is presented in a format that's easy to understand for the customers of the utility and the governing board of their utility. Ultimately, it's a local community document and one that has to be digested by the people that live and work in that community. So, so next slide, so carry on, next slide, next, keep going. And one more. Okay, perfect. So one way that the associations are helping our members prepare the 2023 wildfire mitigation plans is by creating these 6 sub-working groups that bring together technical experts among our members and elsewhere to discuss how their utility has approached these specific topics. And the primary goals are to provide a forum for folks to learn from each other, brainstorm on topics that utilities can consider when they're updating their WMPs, and in some cases, developing actual tools that they can use to assist in the development of their WMPs. So we've avoided characterizing the goal of the groups as best practices because situations are different in every community and they just vary. What might be a best practice in one community is not appropriate in another one. They're good practices. We want to just learn from each other to see what is the most appropriate practice. We also encourage free and open dialogue where a broad range of ideas and measures and programs are considered and shared. So these are the 6 groups, and I want to give you the status of each. Yes. On our group 1 metrics, our initial tasks are completed. Vegetation management and data, we've also completed some of our initial tasks. Asset management and inspections, also initial tasks. So there's been a lot of work done in those. We are in process and talking about grid design and system hardening. Risk modeling tools we'll be meeting later this year. And also climate change data also meeting later this year. So those are important elements of the plans. And again, the idea to share what folks are doing, what agencies are doing, and what's appropriate for each one to include in their comprehensive update. So next slide, and that is the last slide. I'd also like to address the POUs and co-ops without overhead facilities in the wildfire threat areas. And we really appreciate the board's desire to streamline the process so that the POUs and co-ops where there's no reasonable risk of a utility power line, of utility power lines contributing to a wildfire. We think it makes sense for the associations and the POUs and co-ops who are in this category, and along with the board, to collaborate to find ways to achieve that goal, to find the appropriate way to report. And as we pointed out in our joint comments, the statute doesn't create this express exemption for low-risk utilities. So ultimately, it's up to the governing boards of those individual POUs and co-ops to determine how to comply with the statute, which makes it a little challenging to develop a uniform approach and or to create a specific template for those utilities. Nevertheless, we think that there's a way to do it, and we want to explore options with you and have some conversations about some ideas that we have, and we'll be back in touch to have those conversations. And then finally, the use of a common template. We also appreciate the board's review process and the challenging nature of reviewing 50 plans to get through all of them, and the general ease that it would create for having uniformity. We understand that desire. For some POUs and co-ops, that's still somewhat difficult because their primary audience is their local communities and governing boards. Many use the template that was provided by CMUA. Some, however, have evolved them to reflect the questions and desires of their board and their customers. And because of that evolution, their structure now reflects those, the expectations of what their boards are looking for. So the initial response that we got from our utility members was that there would be some difficulty in doing that. Nevertheless, we are understanding of this challenge, and again, we will be working with you to try to develop greater uniformity and to find ways to reduce that burden. We fully understand it, and we want to. We will find a way to do it. I mean, we'll find a way to work together and reduce that burden. So we appreciate your collaboration to reduce wildfires, and it's an ongoing process. We're committed to doing it as you are. So that concludes my presentation, and I'd like to turn to introduce the panel. Happy to take any questions now, or we can wait until we get into the panel. Should we just move to the panel? Yeah, questions or comments?
It's all right. You keep that one.
Okay.
So I'm particularly. Very glad to see. I'm very glad to see in your presentation the establishment of these working groups, and I appreciate the distinction between seeking best practices as a POU in the deserts of Southern California is very different from a POU in the forests of Northern California. I am stricken though. The couple right away. I think there's maybe a couple groups that should be considered, such as like actual operating an electrical utility system, the ways to reduce wildfire risk while doing so, and then the significant effort after reviewing all these plans. You see the focus on that, And then you see a lot of plans focus in on developing situational awareness so as to be able to respond to any particular incident, and perhaps that is another group area of work that would be appropriate for working groups.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, I'd like to follow up on that. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so should I go ahead with the panel? Okay, great. Good. Well, what I'll do is I'll introduce who we have here on the panel, and then the slides will determine who goes next. And I believe Los Angeles Department of Power will be the first one, correct? So on the panel to my left is Sabrina Barber, and she's the manager of Energy Business and Regulatory Compliance Programs for the Imperial Irrigation District. And she'll be speaking on IID's management practices for wildfire mitigation. And next to Sabrina, we have Janet Loneker, and Janet is the Assistant General Manager of Electric Services for Anaheim Public Utilities. And she'll be speaking on APU's efforts to implement wildfire mitigation using customer programs. And then introducing Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, who will start the panel. We have Walter Rodriguez at the end, and Walter is the Director of Power Transmission and Distribution for LADWP. And then Jeff Williams to his right. Jeff is the Electrical Services Manager. So, Walter?
Okay, thank you, Barry. Good
So
afternoon.
let me
Thank you, board. for
let me
allowing us-
move this to you. Okay. Hang on. Yeah, and okay.
Okay, well, once again, thank you, Barry, and thank you to the board for allowing us to present today. We're pleased to be here, and welcome to Los Angeles. I hope you all enjoyed the trip to our Energy Control Center. And befittingly, today is a red flag fire warning day, so you were able to see some of the protocol that we implemented into our high fire threat zone. So
We're having another sound problem. It's hard to hear in the room. So
Okay.
If you could speak up.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so as I said today, befittingly, can you hear? Tess? Yes, okay. Befittingly, today is a red flag fire warning day here in Southern California. So we are experiencing that. So as you all visited our Energy Control Center today, you experienced our safety protocol that we've implemented into our high fire threat protocol. So what we did today is once we get a notification that it will be a fire threat zone, our high red flag day, we will implement blocking of our reclosures in the high fire threat areas. And we will also send notification out to our districts and notify them of the fact that this is taking place. And then they will not work in our high fire threat zones, and they will implement their protocol. So we have a presentation here for you today that Jeff is going to present, and he's going to go over what we've done over the past few years. And we have experienced great benefits from what we've done to hardening our system, implementing different specification standards and different materials. And we're experiencing that today by a low number of outages. So we're greatly pleased to what we've done today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Jeff Williams, our Electrical Services Manager.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you again for allowing us to present here at the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board meeting. I apologize. It looks like our slides, the colors are not coming out very well. But anyways, go ahead and go to the next slide. So this slide here, I kind of put it together to kind of lay out the foundation of why we made some of the decisions we made in our wildfire mitigation plan. So LADWP has two service territories. The one on the left is actually LA City, and then the other one on the right is Owens Valley. So those are the two service territories that we serve customers in. Within these service territories, we only have 20% of our territory in the tier 2 and 1% in tier 3. So we have a very low territory that spans into those fire areas. we only have less than 0.5% of our facilities are actually in a tier 3, or distribution facilities are actually in a tier 3 fire threat zone. 13.8% of our facilities are in a tier 2. Our transmission facilities, we do have 8.6% that fall in the tier 3 areas, and 6.3 that fall in our tier 2. And all our transmission facilities are on lattice towers. We don't have any wood facilities in our transmission system. So they're a lot more stout than the distribution system is. Go ahead and move to the next one. So we really focused in our plan on our preventive strategies. Through our design and infrastructure, our vegetation management, our operational protocols, and our inspection and maintenance programs. Next slide. So first off, our construction standards. Back in 2008, we started to increase our construction standards because of the wind events that have happened in the past, and also the fire that happened in Malibu. So we actually upgraded our pole loading program to not only do 56 miles an hour, but 80 miles an hour in the high fire threat areas. And we still do the 4-to-1 safety factor and all that on that. So it's really strengthened our facilities out there. We started installing fiberglass arms, which have increased strength and lifespan. We've increased the conductor size. You know, a lot of number 6 out there, and from the old days, we've been increasing that to a minimum of 1/0 ACSR, which has a higher strength rating, so that you don't have the ability for it to break as easy. Also, we've in the last year, we've been really focusing on replacing the bare conductor with insulated conductor. And also we've been installing avian and wildlife protection. As you can see by the picture, that's the result of what we've been doing. So this next slide here is what we've replaced within our high fire threat areas in the last 4 years. The main thing I want you to kind of focus on is the conductor mileage in this last year. Because of the focus on changing our bare conductor to covered conductor, we've actually increased it a lot. We've replaced 12.5 miles of conductor, and the vast majority of that is covered conductor. So next slide, our inspection and maintenance. So GO 165 requires us to do a patrol inspection every year and a detailed inspection every 5 years. So what we've done is we decided, hey, we're going to go ahead and do our yearly patrol inspection. We're going to do it in March in the high fire areas. This gives us the ability to, if they find any problems and issues, the ability to get it repaired before the height of our fire season. As you can see, this is really our height of our fire season is October, November, December. That's when we've had some of our most devastating fires in Southern California. We've also enhanced our detailed inspections by doing it every 3 years instead of every 5 years. So this is going to help us identify some of the issues that we have out there and get those repaired before they become a problem. So next slide, our vegetation management. So we do have a database, and we track about 360,000 trees within our system. We utilize what's called a 12-month pruning cycle, which is we have a vegetation management inspector patrols circuits in a certain geographical area, and they prune according to that. So if they find problems, they prune it to keep the vegetation from coming within 48 inches of it. So we don't trim trees back far enough to where they're going to last for years. We do it so by that next vegetation, we're hoping that it'll either be close or still outside of it. And if we have to make small trims, we will. Also too, we do employ an LADWP and contract workforce, and we trim approximately 185,000 trees annually to maintain those clearances. I can go to the next one. So our operational protocols, we have two that we kind of deal with. We deal with a normal condition and a red flag condition. We have two protocols. So during our normal operating conditions, even though there's may not be a high threat for fires, we still require our crews to carry portable radios, fire extinguishers, shovels, and if they're working hot, to clear a 10-foot radius around the pole prior to working. So that way, you know, they don't have, there's not a chance for them to start a wildfire, even in normal conditions. During red flag warnings, we do all of the above, but we stop all non-essential work in those areas. We don't do any new business work. We only do work that's for public safety and that would need to be done to prevent a wildfire. Like today, we may have some crews out there working electric trouble, restoring power in those areas. But when they do, they follow those same protocols as far as 10-foot radius, portable radios and all that. During our red flag warning, Walter spoke about it. We do block reclosures during red flag warnings. We were all notified today, this morning, first thing in the morning, that, hey, we're having a red flag warning. We are blocking reclosures now. So all the managers and the TDDSs get notified that that's the case. So when they're out there working, they know that you know, they are blocked. We do not do PSPS, and the reason why we don't is because we feel we have such a small footprint in the really high fire areas, and that because our distribution stations are usually, you know, in the main part of the city, and then they branch out into the high fire areas. So we feel that the adverse impact of health and safety outweighs the benefits of preemptive power shutoff. Go ahead, next one. So in 2023, we're starting to work on it now. We're developing a performance metrics to track our outages, all of our outages. Mainly, we're going to focus on the tier 2, tier 3 high fire areas, along with the LAFD, sorry, high fire threat zones. We're going to be looking for the potential causes, you know, such as animals, balloons, vegetation, and lightning. I need to take a drink. We're also going to be, you know, monitoring the repair, tracking the repair and the recovery status of those, so we can. This information will give us kind of an idea on how well our existing plan is working, and it also provides us information on improvements that we'll need to make in the future. So we recently started reaching out to certain companies to develop a contract to buy cameras and weather stations. Our priority is going to be to get them on our transmission towers first, and then move over to our distribution poles and our department facilities that are within the high fire areas. This will help us improve our situational awareness. Along with in that contract, we're going to have it'll be monitored by the company who we're going to buy them from, and they'll do the notifications for us. So that's what we're looking forward to. Go ahead and next slide. We've also been working on a services contract for the installation and removal of distribution facilities in the high fire threat areas. They're going to be concentrating mainly on replacing poles and installing covered conductor in the high fire threat areas. This contract is a 3-year contract for over $102 million. This is the first time we've ever done anything specific to high fire as far as spending money. We've always ran it through our power system, our PSRP program, and just kind of, you know, had some focus on that, because when you do your inspections, the way you Rule 18 dictates how you prioritize. And so we've always done our repairs by that prioritization. So these people will be concentrating mainly in that area. So the only thing we're waiting for is the evaluation period to be completed, and then board approval. Any questions?
So thank you. It's pretty informative. Just a real quick question on, do you sectionalize sections of the lines that kind of go through high fire threat districts? Do you have the ability to reroute
Most of our
in some of those
circuitry is
areas?
set up
And
in
is that part of your
manner
normal
already.
practice,
Yes,
or?
yes. We have the ability to do so, but normally you got to realize that our service territory is only 450 square miles, right? So it's pretty dense, right? And we have enough crews to cover the whole area, both Valley and Metro. So normally we can handle a situation and respond to it rapidly. And if we need to sectionalize it, we can.
But it's not a standard practice.
No,
It's okay.
no,
We don't have, it's not on, so it has to be done manual.
right.
Okay.
Send a crew out there to do parallel separations.
But we found that blocking the reclosures helps because if we do get either a relay from galloping wire, a tree branch or wildlife, then it'll lock the circuit out and
Right.
that's it. Send a patrol crew. They patrol it, then they determine it's safe to re-energize.
Okay, thank you.
I also have a question. In the installation and replacement contract that you're going to award eventually, what are the metrics or the strategic goal you guys are looking to meet for that area?
We haven't said, there's a certain amount of poles and cross arms and transformers and wire that we want replaced in those areas with covered wire and new standards. So we haven't specifically determined the amount of poles at this point. Once we award the contract, then we will settle numbers.
Okay, to actually,
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys have an idea of what thresholds you want to be able to say that we can meet? And by the way, I don't want to hold you to, to giving it to me right now.
Yeah. We are looking at that and we're going to implement that. We're going to work with our inspection and maintenance group to determine what number we feel that is attainable,
Okay,
so to speak, and then we will set that with our contractors.
All right.
That we get on board.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I do have one other quick question. So as you look to moving to covered conductor, I know we were at the facility this morning in a discussion kind of went on into possibly raising the voltage
Right,
in system, which would require less circuits possibly.
right.
Is that part of your calculations?
Yes, absolutely.
when you
Because
start doing
we're
that?
looking, what we're doing now is we're spreading our conductor to maximum spread and we're buying insulators that will accommodate a 12 kV system. So we're
Okay.
already building for the future. And so we're hoping to move in that direction slowly but surely. We'll get there, but that's what we're building for. And the main thing that we're reaping benefits from is the maximum spread, right? Because as you all know, with the smaller conductor in the winds, it tends to gallop and sag and you know, you can get the relay that way.
Okay.
So we're seeing that with the covered conductor, it doesn't do that.
Thank you.
I don't know which button to push. Just to touch the pad. Okay.
There we go. I think we have it. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Block, members of the advisor or of the board, Advisor Tutt, and the general public. As Barry had indicated, my name is Sabrina Barber. I'm the manager of energy regulatory or energy business and regulatory compliance programs for the Imperial Irrigation District. I'm before you here today to give a brief overview of wildfire and fire mitigation in general as it relates to IID. Next slide, please. As a bit of background, IID is an irrigation district established under the California Water Code that provides non-potable water, farm drainage, and power services to the lower southeastern portion of California's desert. We're a vertically integrated load balancing electric utility providing generation, distribution, and transmission service to customers. IID's service territory covers over 6,600 square miles, including all of Imperial County and the Coachella Valley and Riverside County and a portion of eastern San Diego County, which is outlined here. It's dashed out in black and yellow, hard to see on those slides, but the utility operates over 1,800 miles of overhead energy transmission lines and over 4,400 power distribution lines, and we serve approximately 158,000 power contract accounts. This map represents the current fire hazard severity zones for Imperial and Riverside counties. As you can see, there's a small fringe hazard area near the Imperial Riverside county line shown on the map as sort of a red soaring bird-shaped patch just left of the Salton Sea. This hazard zone consists of approximately 43 square miles which equates to less than 1%. It's actually 0.66% of IID service territory. Next slide, please. Part of this high fire threat zone is located in the northern section of the Anza Borrego Desert State Park and continues north through a desert mountainous area. As you can see from the photos, the designated area has scarce vegetation, very low population area, and really the only infrastructure in that area is distribution single phase construction. So there have been no wildfire or wildland fires inside the IID service territory caused by power generation or transmission infrastructure reportable by the National Interagency Fire Center, nor have there been any fires reportable by CAL FIRE. Next slide, please. Although IID doesn't really have any at-risk infrastructure in the designated fire threat zones, we submitted an SB 901 wildfire mitigation plan and update that identifies existing and planned efforts to help reduce the risk of fire ignitions that could be caused by IID's power infrastructure. What we have experienced, though, are fire risk near IID power lines involving haystacks, trees, and that includes date palms and California fan palms, as well as other tall vegetation that's located directly under and adjacent to our power lines. From 2013 to 2020, or 2021, excuse me, fire events reported by CAL FIRE reflect a total of 275 acres burned in Imperial County and 697 acres burned in the Riverside County portions of our service territory. And to clarify, these aren't utility-related ignitions, rather fires initiated by other sources. However, IID has found that the SB 901 WMP process was beneficial in reviewing our current processes and protocols, as well as enhancing the robust communication channels that had already existed between IID and our local emergency management services. Next slide, please. As indicated previously, IID recognizes and fully supports the intent of SB 901. Like other publicly owned utilities, we developed and adopted a wildfire mitigation plan for the 2020 to 2022 timeframe, and we also submitted an annual progress update to this board. We've worked very hard to address the various components within the legislation and the guidance provided by the WSAB. Outlined here are a few of the key utility practices in the IID's toolkit specific to fire mitigation. Significant attention is given to prevention strategies, very similar to LADWP. It includes vegetation management and inspections of our power line corridors, the line and equipment itself, as well as substation. In terms of planning and design, IID makes every effort to avoid placing new infrastructure in any potential high threat area. If and when that will be needed, we will use a conservative design concept to underground and apply similar approaches to further reduce or eliminate any potential risks. We work very closely with our local and surrounding emergency management teams through periodic tabletop and field exercises with specific focus on incident command systems, multi or interagency coordination, and mutual aid, which are all obviously critical elements in any emergency situation. Additionally, we have reviewed our existing regulations to identify any improvements that we can make to increase effectiveness, such as our Regulation 23 that covers clearance requirements for our power line corridors. We've also enhanced communication protocols and outreach efforts related to infractions and resolution. We find that that's been very advantageous given a lot of our service territory involves ag areas and extensive right-of-way where farmers tend to want to park or house their haystacks and things of that nature. So the increased communications has been really helpful. Next slide, please. I won't spend too much time here, but do want to say that we appreciate staff's efforts in preparing the guidance document and also for all the insight that the board has provided. We continue to look to the board's advice and revisit our documents as necessary. We have developed our 2023 to 2025 WMP and opened it up for public comment. The comment period closed earlier this week, actually. So we are in the process of compiling any feedback so that we can make any revisions and incorporate that as needed. And we will be presenting the draft document to our Energy Consumers Advisory Committee. They're an advisory committee that provides recommendations to our board of directors for consideration. So once we have that, we will present the board or present the plan to the board for their consideration and potential adoption. Next slide, please. Oh, looks like that's the end. So in conclusion, while IAD is kind of uniquely situated with regard to SB 901 and wildfire risk, we're one of those unique or smaller organizations and co-ops that Barry had mentioned, but we certainly believe reliability and safety is paramount when providing electrical services to the communities we serve, and that obviously includes fire mitigation. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I will turn it over to Anaheim to share some exciting projects and programs that they have.
I have one just real quick question.
Sure.
So IAD doesn't, they have some generation, but I'm sure they're relying on generation from other sources as well.
Correct.
Do those other sources have potential of affecting outages? You know, I know some of them are backed up to some high fire threat districts. And have you been able to evaluate if those lines were affected from one of your sources, how that would impact your system?
We have looked into that, and at this time, we don't believe that we would be impacted by any. We also don't believe that we're impacted by any of the PSPS or events. So at this time, it looks like we're probably okay. So we continue to evaluate that as needed, and we'll make changes accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Now Janet Lodeker from Anaheim Public Utilities.
Good afternoon, board. Really happy to be here. Janet Loneker, representing Anaheim Public Utilities. And I'm going to talk a little bit today in my presentation about the customer side. And what that is how do we empower customers, small businesses, medium-sized businesses to be more prepared and be more resilient to wildfires. So with that, I'll just give you a little context on Anaheim. So next slide. There we go. So Anaheim is approximately 50 square miles of service territory, municipal owned, and we serve a population of 360,000. And as you can see from our wildfire mitigation plan map, we primarily have wildfire, high fire threat zones in the eastern portion of the city, with the highest, most extreme tier 3 portion of high fire threat zones in our most easterly portion. We, as recently as 2017, have had experienced wind-driven wildfires. Next slide, please. These wildfires, particularly the Canyon 2 wildfire, destroyed homes and also led to the evacuation of thousands of residents in Anaheim. And the cause of the Canyon Fire 2 was actually from the embers carrying over from the previous wildfire. So Canyon Fire 1 embers actually led to Canyon Fire 2. And because of that, it was about 9,200 acres burned in Anaheim, as well as about 25 homes that were completely destroyed. Fortunately, none of APU's sub-transmission or distribution lines were impacted. And that's primarily because Anaheim-owned power lines are 98% underground in our high fire threat zones. But with that, we still have wildfire mitigation strategies to address the 2% that we still have of overhead lines in the wildfire threat zones. And one of those strategies is undergrounding. Next slide, please. So a project that was identified in our wildfire mitigation plan and recently completed was eucalyptus. And this project was prioritized due to its close proximity to our Deer Canyon Park, which is an extreme Tier 3 fire zone. One of the biggest challenges was trenching and excavating on such a narrow roadway. And this roadway was actually the only access in and out of the neighborhoods. And so we really had to do a lot of customer coordination with the community and the residents so that we could protect major ingress and egress to this area. In addition, we used new types of transformers for subterranean undergrounding here. These transformers are filled with insulating oil that's called FR3, which has a higher temperature threshold than our standard transformers and also has a feature of self-extinguishing. And so we begin using all of these in our undergrounding projects for the fire threat zones. Next slide, please. This is the after photo with the electrical overhead lines that have been removed, as well as the street was repaved for eucalyptus. Now the poles are topped down to the telecommunication level. And this is really a good example of why telecom companies need to participate in joint undergrounding for reliability purposes. And for this particular case here, we actually had to use local funding to underground the AT&T lines. And so we believe that all utilities on the poles should have a shared responsibility for undergrounding because we all share in safety and we all share in wildfire mitigation. And while we appreciate that this is maybe outside of the purview of the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board, it is certainly a recommendation that should be made to the CPUC. And so I just wanted to share that with the board, that safety is a responsibility. And we've seen that communication companies, facilities can contribute to wildfire mitigation. Next slide, please. So we've undertaken another project, undergrounding project, to completely underground the remaining 2% of our overhead lines in the fire threat zones in Anaheim, which equates to about 3.2 miles in 7 different locations. Our plan has been approved by the Anaheim City Council and has been positively received by the residents in the affected areas. This will also eliminate our need to do a public safety power shutoff in the future. APU applied and was approved for a FEMA grant for this undergrounding project in the fire threat zone. These are some of the photos of the proposed 7 underground locations, which is estimated to cost about $10 million. As you can see, some of the overhead lines are surrounded by trees and brush, which is an elevated risk, particularly during the Santa Ana wind conditions. But it's also very narrow. It's also, the terrain is steep and it makes it difficult for our large utility trucks to access, as well as first responders with the fire trucks. So the first phase of the design has been approved. And we are now, the second phase of construction is under review by FEMA, and we're awaiting response and approval. So we anticipate construction to begin next year, fall of 2023. Next slide, please. And Sabrina had talked about communication and outreach in the community, and it's a very important part of our wildfire mitigation planning. So here, for example, AP hosted 2 pop-up outreach events in September for this wildfire undergrounding to present information on the upcoming undergrounding project. Residents had the opportunity to ask questions about the project, to actually drive up or walk up to our pop-up tent and talk to our project engineer, talk to our project managers, and any questions or concerns they may have. One of the common questions we get is regarding outages. And so even for converting from overhead to underground, there's some planned outages involved, and even for unplanned outages. And it was our opportunity to let our customers know, get the information out, that we also have a service where we provide backup generators, portable backup generators, particularly for those, the community and residents that have medical needs or special circumstances, where we will actually bring out a small portable backup generator or a small battery so that maybe they don't have to worry about their oxygen tank or their CPAP machine if it's an extended outage. So that is a service that is much appreciated by our residents. We also have Anaheim Fire and Rescue, our local fire department, join us on these outreach events, and they can give out information on wildfire preparedness. And they also have the opportunity to feature their goat mascot. And that's always a big hit because that gives them the chance to talk about their brush abatement and how the role of their goats is used to reduce the grass fuels in the area. And so that's always a very popular item with us. So it's really a grassroots effort. So next slide. I'm so glad you all got that. So in collaboration with Fire and Rescue, as I was saying, it gives us the chance to cross-promote programs. And so, for example, here, the Anaheim Fire and Rescue has the home safety visit, where they'll actually go out to a residence and they will evaluate wildfire preparedness. They will look to see what recommendations they can make to better prepare the resident during a wildfire. They will test smoke alarms and actually replace them if they're not in working condition. And in tandem, APU has a representative there to talk about rebates and programs we can offer to residents to also fire harden their properties. So for example, Anaheim Public Utilities offers up to 6 trees through our tree power program. And these are trees that are fire resistant. And so we have a list of 40 species of fire resistant trees and plants that our specialists will go out and the resident can select. We provide the trees, and we also give them education on where to plant the trees so that they can create a safety zone around their homes, as well as understanding how to care and plant the trees. Another of our rebates is our attic insulation rebate, where for 35 cents a square foot, up to $750, it will incentivize residents to upgrade to the Class 1A fire rating insulation. And so that includes both rolled and blown insulation. It's really a resource. The Department of Energy and Energy Star is really a good resource. And we put their information out on our website and our social media where we can to educate residents on our different rebates and how we already promote Energy Star in our energy efficiency. And so this is a great segue to also promote Energy Star programs for wildfire preparedness. We also have a $250 rebate for fire resistant vents, which are designed to block embers from entering homes. According to our fire department, that is the #1 reason is embers entering through the vents in the attic is the #1 cause of total loss of property, according to our fire department. And there are newer styles of vents which can automatically close once the sensors detect smoke in the air. So to date, we have 48 households that have received approximately $31,000 in rebates, and 48 households after at about 850 households in our high fire threat zones. So we promote our rebates on our website, our community events near the wildfire threat zones, and through social media. Next slide. We take every opportunity we can to distribute our information, and again, cross promoting and engaging with the community with our other departments. So last month, we actually participated in the Anaheim Fire and Rescue Wildfire Safety Fair. And again, able to give out information on our rebates and programs. And it's a well-attended event because there's prizes, there's raffles, and as you can see, there's lots of fire trucks, which really is a draw to families to come out and learn and engage. So Anaheim has a community-owned utility, which makes it unique, and local control, fire departments, police departments. So it's really a benefit that we have the ability to work together and really take every opportunity we can to engage with our community. So that's the end of my presentation. And I very much appreciate the time and effort of the Wildfire Safety Advisory Board for reviewing all of these plans and particularly pointing out what works, what needs improvement, because we're constantly trying to see how we can improve our wildfire mitigation. So I thank you for that, and thank you for the time and invite here today. Appreciate it. I'd like to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, testing. Okay, we're not too close to each other. Okay. Thank you so much for that presentation. I'm just speaking on behalf of Dr. Seifert, who's listening in. She says you've got your science right. She's really stoked about your vegetation program. Well, many, but in part, I think I was also checking in with her about your fire resistant vegetation and distances and programs. It's absolutely wonderful. Would love to see some kind of write-up or best practice that you have for this program that we could share in some way, just as an example.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Enjoyed sharing it with you. Thank you
We'll
for
follow
that
up.
feedback. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. Are we, Tim, where are we at? Questions, should I
Next
ask
slide, please.
the audience, the board, do you have any other questions or comments for our panel?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to say thank you so much. We're so thrilled we could be here and have you to host. It's really important to us that we have a chance to have some FaceTime with you. And I've learned a lot from your presentations and really appreciate it a lot. Shall we consider going to break? Okay. I should go to public comment first or not?
Chair Block,
Yes.
we only have the room, we have to be out before 5.
Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. A 7-minute break. And we'll be back at, that'll be, the 7 minutes gets us at 4:06, and then we'll start then and we'll talk about our document and close up. Thank you all. We'll be right back. Hi, all. We're going to reconvene.
You don't even know me or? No, my wife, she does.
We're starting back up. Thank you all. Tim, am I handing it to you?
Yes.
So I'd like to, so our last agenda item is reviewing our guidance advisory opinion with recommendations to the POUs on their 2023 comprehensive revisions. Tim, would you go through our review, please?
Yes. Thank you. So our 2023 guidance advisory opinion was posted a few weeks ago, and a red line version with changes was posted yesterday morning. The document is divided up into the main section has three kind of chapters or sections. One is WMPs and reporting based on threat level. Second is comprehensive revision WMPs and WSAB proposed template. And a third is specific topic WSAB recommendations. And I'll go through each of those in a little more detail. There's also 4 appendices in the document. Appendix 3 contains the specific bullet points for all 50 POU WMPs, and Appendix 4 goes through the changes and clarifications that were made in the document in response to public comment in between the initial posting and the red line posting. And so I'll go through that a little bit. Next slide. So for WMPs reporting at a specific threat level, we want to engage in collaboration with the POU community to streamline WMP requirements for low threat publicly owned utilities. We know that there are many that are in this category, and we believe it's a good discussion to have. So we propose that POUs with no overhead assets in or near high fire threat districts should consider reduced WMP reporting, and we will work with those POUs to try to understand what that is. We propose that POUs with no overhead assets in or near higher fire threat districts also should consider the sort of a spread out timing for engaging independent evaluators. The law is not specific as to when independent evaluators should be procured or engaged in by POUs. And for these high fire threat, for these low threat level POUs, we don't see a good reason to have them engaged and procured every year, for example. Next slide, please. So we also have suggested that POUs should consider using the comprehensive revision template that's in Appendix 1. We are interested in consistency, certainly, but also interested in the sort of adding real data to the template and to the WMPs that we receive based on that template. In many cases, in our previous WMPs, the previous template that was used ended up being a significant amount of generic language, and we'd like more specific information about the specific circumstances of those POUs. And in that light, the POUs that have developed comprehensive and robust WMP structures that have sort of, based on their circumstances, used different ways of crafting their WMPs should continue those ways. And then we're not asking them to stop what they were doing and start using a new template, but we want them to consider if there's any of the information proposed in Appendix 1 that they could add to their particular WMPs. Next slide, please. So for specific WSAB recommendations, we just requested again that the POUs include prior and current WSAB recommendations in their 2023 comprehensive revision documents, and to adopt thoughtful, relevant metrics and provide useful results tracking in those 2023 comprehensive revision WMPs. In some cases, for example, we had POUs that have all underground infrastructure and they had a wires down metric. And so we just want metrics that make sense for the specific circumstances of the POUs. We do think that it's be reasonable for the POUs to engage independent evaluators for these 2023 comprehensive revision WMPs. And we want them to incorporate the independent evaluators recommended improvements as applicable. That's one of the clarifications I'll get to later. And then finally, on this slide, the WSAB looks forward to working group shareable results, any results that the working groups have come up with or have provided or created that can be shared with the board. Next slide. So we encourage further efforts of those working groups on cost-effective risk modeling and climate change issues. We understand that POUs are not generally a community that can do the kind of risk modeling that the IOUs have engaged in. They don't have the resources for that. And we understand that climate change is a long-range issue. It needs to be planned for now, but we're looking also at developing short-range wildfire mitigation practices. We encourage the further working group efforts on vegetation management practices. That's been a big topic for the WSAB for some time now, and we're looking forward to working with the POUs further on that, and looking forward to working with the Office of Energy Safety and the IOUs in the state in the workshops or the projects that were discussed earlier by Nicole Dunlap. We also encourage enhanced information in the WMPs on backup power resources for mitigating wildfire impacts. Once again, we're not asking for POUs to go out and develop specific resource plans for wildfire, but we're interested in, if they have any such programs, to have them reported to us in their WMPs so that we understand that aspect of their customer care and wildfire mitigation practices. Next slide, please. So going through the revisions that we made, there's 5 sort of sections in Appendix 4, and I'll go through each of those in turn. Next slide, please. So for the WSAB revisions, we added a bunch of sidebars calling out good publicly owned utility practices. And then we added or altered specific recommendation points for banning Lodi, Lathrop, Port of Stockton, Roseville, and Trinity. And those were added in response to those POUs. Some of them had not submitted WMPs yet, and they came in after the publication of the initial draft. Others are in response to additional board input on those POUs. We fixed a bunch of typos and formatting issues, including switching from passive to active voice in many places. We clarified the independent evaluator recommendations, and that's a question of whether clarified that we didn't expect POUs to engage in another contract with a different independent evaluator, but to have the independent evaluator they've engaged to make recommendations, and then to for them to incorporate those recommendations in their POUs. That was the secondary look for the independent evaluator that we called out. And then we clarified the LADWP's customer emergency notification issues and questions in the document. Next slide, please. I clarified that we're not calling for a second independent evaluator engagement. We clarified the request for LADWP information on outage customer engagement, and we clarified Silicon Valley power information in Appendix 3. There was just some slight edits there, and then they filed another final WMP after the initial draft of the document. And we clarified the board recommendation about using comprehensive revision templates for WMP filings. And again, that's what I went over earlier, that we're interested in consistency, but more interested in getting good specific information from all of the WMP, all the POUs in their WMPs. And that's it. I turn it back over to Chair Block.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you so much for that, overview. Board members, do you have any discussion points you'd like to raise? Board member Mader.
I just want to take this time to say what a joy it's been to work with you, Tim. Really appreciate the effort that you put in. I think that the work that you've done is really actually increased the safety of the people of California. So thank you, and I look forward to some other time being able to work with you again.
I have a comment, if any. Vice Chair Fellman, I just want to say the lack of discussion here does not mean a lack of effort that went into these. And just for the members of the POU community who are here, excuse me, and also anyone watching, we do spend an extensive amount of time reviewing the filings, and then given the Bagley-Keene restraints, we do have Bagley-Keene groups where we discuss the filings, but each of us has assignments. And then it is truly a heroic effort on the part of our advisor and Mr. Tutt's experience in the publicly owned utility community really, really paid off, I feel, this year. I hope you feel the same, that we were able to focus in. He helped us focus in, and through extensive discussions with him on a one-on-one basis, we're able to get the document that we have. And in particular, I think Mr. Tutt created that appendix with each publicly owned utility where we could look at it at a granular level and make the assessments that were what we felt were needed at this point in our review. So I want to acknowledge that. And again, it's not because we discuss things ahead of time or are not interested. It's that we really had a great foundation for our review, Mr. Tutt. And also we spent, I think, a lot of time this round. We were able to dive into each POU. And again, I said it at the beginning, but I want to thank the POU community, because it was really a much easier task this year. I don't know how the other board members felt, but that we could really see what was there, and especially for, I think, the public's purposes. So I'll say, even though it's particularly for my purposes, having those summaries at the beginning of each service territory, you can see the lay of the land, and that's so beneficial. So you can see right away, oh, like everything's undergrounded in this service territory, or, oh, there's this much of our service territories in a certain, in tier 3, and that is so useful. So again, that I felt we shouldn't just adopt this without indicating how much effort went into it by everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Fellman. Sort of tacking onto that, I do want to also just emphasize some of the points that Tim had covered for us. One, that we recommend that the POUs adopt thoughtful and relevant metrics that are appropriate and reflect their service territory. I mean, I've said this a couple of times now, but it's just been really great for us to be here in Southern California and to be in person with some of the POUs during this review process, and to see how they're uniquely addressing the issues in their territory. Often the POUs have much smaller territories and can address much more specific issues that are really important case studies for the rest of California to see. And we look forward to highlighting some of the excellent work that we're seeing on a publicly owned utility specific basis. So I'm really grateful for having gone through the process and getting that exposure and seeing how different they are from the IOUs. And that's my comment for now.
I just want to echo that there's an overall trend of improving WMPs. To call out a few, San Francisco Public Utility Commission, they really had a lesson learned from how to evaluate fire risk from an actual fire, and they included that in their WMP, that learning experience. That's I want to call out that one particular positive because we can hold this up as an example of how to document, not only learn for yourself, but to document it in a way that other PUCs can learn from, improve public safety.
Agreed. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I'll ask. So Dr. Seifert or Board Member Seifert, do you have any, so I've been in touch with her on the back end. She couldn't be with us today because she's under the weather. Wanted to just give you a chance to pop up and say anything if you'd like. I tried to represent your comments. Do you have anything additional to say at this time?
Hi, can you hear me?
We're turning you on.
Can you hear me? Yes, no? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Hi, yes, I would also, first of all, just like to join everybody in thanking Tim for all of your hard work. You have really made things easy for us, and we are sorry to see you go and hope you stay in touch. For the POUs, I contributed to recommendations on vegetation management and risk assessment. One of the concerns I have ongoing is the trade-offs relative to fuel volume versus flammability. And I really liked how Anaheim gave a good example of those trade-offs, and that sometimes, and particularly in Southern California, if you remove shrubland that is green, evergreen, chaparral, you run the risk of converting that into really flammable, fast-moving invasive grasses, and thereby actually making the environment more flammable than had you just left the green vegetation in place. And it's complicated because, of course, woody vegetation creates embers, and embers are typically the things that fly and land on the grass, which is really flammable. But I really like the recognition of green trees serving as ember catchers. And I like the idea of dealing with grasses specifically with goats. And, the pictures in the Anaheim slideshow really illustrated, when you look at some of those pictures, you see the bright green, and then you see that yellow, tall, invasive grass. And you know that if that grass sparks, the fire is going to move quickly through it, and often can carry the fire into vegetation that's more dangerous for firefighters to fight in. So that's all I had to comment on. And I'm happy to answer any questions about those specifically.
Thank you so much, Board Member Seifert. I really appreciate that you were able to make those comments, because I agree, those are, the complications, the nuance, the complications and the nuance are what we really need to be paying attention to. So I'm glad you were able to say that. I wanted to, I noted, Board Member Salmon pointed out that Jessica Nelson is on the line and should I ask if you have any comments or input from our document or the meeting to date?
Just recognize.
Okay. Jessica, do you, if you have to, does she need to raise her hand for you to choose her? Okay. In the meantime,
Jessica, go ahead.
Right. So why don't I I can ask for any more of the comments on our chamber and the comments. Okay. Right, I'm gonna speak. Okay.
so, so in order to turn over to public comment and get those that are just as attendees to be opened up to speak, I'd like to just close up and ask if the board, anybody else on the board has anything to say or comment on our advisory document. No? Okay, and then I would like to move to public comment to open up to the discussion around our advisory document as well as the panel and anything else of concern from the meeting. And Jessica, if you are still there and you can speak, we would love to hear from you.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, hello. Thank you for your time today. And we, Barry Moline very clearly communicated a lot of the points that we've been really collaborating on. We appreciate all the work you're putting into this, and we understand that it's a large burden to review all 50 of these wildfire mitigation plans. So we appreciate you taking the time to do that, providing us with some great feedback, and we will do our best to continue to work collaboratively with you. Each of the electric cooperatives in California are very different, and each of those are different from the publicly owned utilities. So as Barry was saying, there are a lot of things that are unique that maybe don't lend themselves to best practices because of the differences between us, but we still are engaged in those working groups and appreciate CMUA for really spearheading a lot of that, and we'll continue to work to improve our wildfire mitigation plan. So that's really all I had to say. I appreciate your time, and thank you for inviting me to speak.
Thank you so much, Jessica. We really appreciate you attending and look forward to working with you into the future. Are there any other public comments? So I'm just going to go down through the mediums for public comment. Is there anybody online additionally who would like to raise their hand to speak? While we're waiting, if you would like to speak and you're dialed into the Zoom, please raise your hand while we're waiting for that. Could I ask anybody in the room if they would like to say anything or comment or have questions? Okay. I'll just wait 1 minute or 1 second. And there's nobody on the phone, correct, Rain?
We have one phone-in caller, but they haven't indicated that they have anything to say.
Great. Okay. So with the conclusion of public comment, I'd like to get a motion to adopt the 2023 POU WMP Guidance Advisory Opinion Document.
So moved.
Okay, John Mader motions to adopt. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ralph Armstrong seconds. Tim, will you take a roll call?
So Chair Block.
Aye.
Board Member Armstrong.
Aye.
Board Member Mader.
Aye.
Board Member Porter.
Aye.
Vice Chair Fellman.
Aye.
And Board Member Seifert.
Aye. Did you hear me?
One more time there.
Okay, sorry. Did you get it?
The answer is
Yes? Yeah. Thanks.
I also got, Jonathan Frost told us there's no additional comments on the WSAB email.
Good. Well, that's 6 ayes and 0 noes, and the document is adopted.
Okay. I believe we've come to the end of our meeting. Thank you all for participating in this hybrid live in-person Zoom meeting. Thank you all for your patience for the technical difficulties. We will likely have them next time too, before we smooth it all out. We again really appreciate public comment and input. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you want to get a hold of us. Our information can be found on our website. Thank you very much, Rain, for helping make this happen and being so nimble to help us with our technical issues and communicating so well. Tim and Marianne, we couldn't have gotten through, there was so much orchestration to make this happen and to be our first travel meeting outside of the Bay of Northern California. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Jonathan Frost, for being able to be with us throughout the meeting remotely. And Tim, we're gonna miss you terribly. I don't know how we're gonna, what we're gonna do without you. And please stay in touch, and we hope to see your successful retirement. Thank you. I also want to thank members of the public that have attended today and those who have participated in the public comment. This is a collective effort to keep California safe, and we hope to see you all at the next meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Ralph?
Second.
Chris seconds. Any objections? No. Hearing none, the November 16th board meeting is adjourned, and thank you all again very much. Great to see you all. And then, good. And I can leave the meeting, right?